Namaste, friends. I'm coming to you today from an unusual location, my humble kitchen in my studio apartment in Ananda community here in Mountain View, California. And the subject that I'm going to talk to you about today is also a different one, different from anything I've shared before. I'm going to talk to you about Paramhansa Yogananda's 9-day cleansing diet. So that's why I thought this will be a good setting. This is a casual vlog style video. I've not done these before. I thought this will be a better format for sharing about this topic because many people over the years have asked me questions about this. I have done this particular cleansing diet every year for at least 10 or 11 years, and sometimes I've even done multiple times a year. So I'm very fond of doing it. It is a part of my routine, and I've had a lot of learnings and challenges in how I have done it. So I thought this will be a nice way to share some of that with you, and also how you can adapt and modify, how you can overcome some of the challenges, and Yoganandaji's teachings on all of these things. So I hope you'll enjoy them. I'm recording this on March 16th. I'm not a professional YouTuber, so I'm not going to be posting constantly or keeping you updated. I hopefully will get these videos up on time so you can watch. I will post more videos as I go through these 9 days. Today is day 1 of my cleanse, and I'm going to be doing it for 9 days, maybe even more than 9 days. So I'll be sharing these with you as I go along the journey. Feel free to post any questions or comments you have, and if I happen to record a video after I read those comments, I will certainly make sure to address them as well. Any questions you have, I'll be happy to take them. So diving right into the topic, what is this 9-day cleansing diet all about? Now, Yoganandaji had many different suggestions, tips, a lot of teachings on diet, overall well-being, how to maintain perfect health. You know, a great avatar like Paramhansa Yogananda not just comes to bring God realization for all of us, but he also teaches us how to live better in this world. So it is just such a blessing for us to have all these practical teachings that he has left for us. Now, he has written many recipes, probably hundreds of them that used to come in the East-West magazine that used to publish back then. And a lot of these recipes are almost just of historic value because we don't cook like that anymore. He was speaking to a particular demographic. He was speaking to America in the 1920s. Now in 2022, America is very different. And of course, I'm speaking to a global audience. But all this to say, he had a lot of teachings on diet and many different suggestions on how to maintain good health, many different diets, and how to actually eat in a balanced way, how to draw prana into the body, how to take care of yourself. The 9-day cleansing diet, he recommended all of us do it at least once a year. He gave a host of benefits that one would get from it, starting obviously from detoxification and cleansing of the body, and more importantly, which is something I'll talk more about in a future video, eliminating any psychological dependency we have on food, any of our cravings for things in particular, salt, sugar, spice, oil, fat, any of that, how to eliminate all of that from our lives. And then he goes on to say, even reduced sleep, deeper meditation, increased awareness of subtle energy, of the awareness of prana in meditation. He says all of these are benefits of this diet, and there are many more. I'm sure I'm not listing all of them here. Now, of course, I've felt many of them through this diet, and my sole purpose of sharing all of this with you is that you would also be encouraged to try on this diet, and even if it feels intimidating right in this moment, of course, try it in whatever way you can. Maybe adapt it to suit whatever is realistic for you, or instead of 9 days, try it for 2 or 3 days to begin with. But I'm urging all of you to try it. For me personally, even more than all the physiological benefits and the health effects of a diet like this, I also feel closer to my guru, Paramhansa Yogananda, through this diet, because this was something he specifically prescribed for all of us. And by following this discipline, I see it as an act of tapasya, putting myself and my desires aside and making it an offering of love at his feet. So I've always felt a wave of grace and an increased sense of joy by doing this diet. So even if you identify as a disciple of Yogananda or not, I'm sure you'll feel some of that grace coming from him through this diet. So I certainly encourage and welcome you to try it. So moving right on, what does this diet involve? This diet, you eat a certain number of things, a prescribed list of things every day. You eat all of them and nothing more. All of the details of this is in the description below, where you can see these exact list of things that are part of this diet. I'm going to read them briefly, although I know I'm just reading because I might forget. The things that you eat every day as part of this diet are 1.5 grapefruits, 1.5 lemons, 5 oranges, 1 cooked vegetable with the cooking liquid, 1 raw vegetable salad, 1 cup of orange juice, and 3 cups of what Yoganandaji calls the vitality beverage. The vitality beverage contains 2 stalks of celery, 5 carrots, 1 bunch of parsley, and a cup or so of spinach or dandelion greens or some green like that. There are 2 methods to make the vitality beverage. The first method is, which is what Yoganandaji writes about in his writings, is you chop all of these vegetables very fine, or you run them in a food processor, you boil them with water, and then you use a cheesecloth to strain all the fiber out, and you keep the broth. And you can drink the broth either warm or at room temperature along with every meal. The other method is actually to run them through a cold pressing juicer. There are many juicer options in the market. I use a particular juicer, I'll share that with you later on, and you can just juice them fresh and have a cup of it. Now, I have tried both methods many times. The first few years I always tried the broth method, and then I tried the juice method, I went back to broth, and the last few years I've certainly settled on the juice method. There are a couple of reasons why I prefer the juice method. The first one is, I'll be very honest, the broth method was much harder for me to stomach. You know, the first few times I could easily take the broth, but after that, just the smell of it, just the cooked vegetables and without salt or any seasoning, and even my kitchen would really heavily smell of that broth. I have to be honest, it was a bit nauseating for me, and it was making the fast very hard, the diet very hard for me, so it was not as easy for me to do that method. The other method actually, which is honestly the reason why I drifted away from it, because I could push through that through my own discipline, but what really made it very challenging for me is that it was much more time consuming because I don't have a food processor. If I had a food processor, maybe it won't be, but I don't do that because, you know, I had to chop everything by hand, which took a lot of time, and then straining and keeping the broth. Of course, the one advantage of doing the broth method is that the broth can be saved for later. You can make that broth ahead of time, at least a few rounds. Whereas the juice, I personally prefer juicing it fresh, because cold pressed juice, you know, gets oxidized very easily, so I like to have as soon as I juice. Instead of having 3 times a day, because of my own life, and to be realistic, I only have it 2 times, but of course I consume the quantity of vegetables that Yoganandaji mentions. I just don't juice 3 times a day because I leave home for work and then I come back in the evening and I have the second portion of the juice, both of which I juice fresh. If you're using the juicing method, I tend to use more vegetables than what the recipe prescribes because I'm not adding water, so I don't have enough juice. If I just use 2 stalks of celery and 5 carrot, I might add a few more of everything to just make more quantity of the juice, and I'm sure all the ingredients are going to have the same prana, and I don't think adding the ingredients is going to make any significant difference to that. So that's what I have every day. That's what is part of the fast every day. Now I'll share with you how I split this. Even before that, I want to say how and when I prefer to do this fast, and I've always found it very beneficial and helpful to do it in the spring season. I'm recording this on March 16th, so I'm just starting this fast, and this is about the time I start the diet every year, sometimes in early April. And there are a couple of reasons why I prefer that. Everything because of where I live and the climate and things in my own life. The first reason is that, you know, the citrus fruits, this diet is heavily alkalizing. There's a lot of acid, there's a lot of citrus in the diet, but if you know how citrus fruits are absorbed in the body and what they do to the gut, they make your gut very alkaline. We'll talk about that in a future video. But because it is so heavy on citrus fruits, and where I live in California, there is an abundance of citrus fruits, and the natural harvest season is around winter time. It's late winter, so the harvest is very abundant in January, February time, and it goes on till March and sometimes till early April, which is when it starts winding down. So I like to take advantage of having that fresh citrus fruit available for me. That's why I like to do it in early spring. I don't do it earlier like January or February. I have actually tried it once. I tried once in December when also citrus fruits are very easily available. That was very challenging for me because another important part of this diet is also getting enough sunlight to walk outside and to receive prana in that way, from the sun. And obviously, because winter is very cold, I'm not tempted to walk outside or do that. So I personally prefer this time of the year. Depending upon where you live, you can choose any time. If citrus fruits were abundant all the time, I would actually prefer summer, perhaps. Summer, my pick for citrus is limited in the farmers markets and in terms of getting fresh fruit. So that's why I pick this particular time of the year. Now, I'll also tell you a little bit more about how I split these things into my meals of the day. I will come back to offering some suggestions on what you can replace it with if these things are not available for you where you live, especially if you're from India, because I understand not all of these things are available in India. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But first, to start with, this is how I do it every day. I generally, when I'm not fasting or dieting, I tend to have my first meal of the day around noon. I don't eat breakfast, but when I'm doing this diet, I do have my first meal earlier than that. About 10 o'clock in the morning, I get a late start after I finish my meditation and stuff. The first thing I do is I clean all my ingredients for the juice and I run it through my juicer and have a cup of that juice. And also during the same time after I finish the juice, I have my grapefruit quota for the day. Now here is where I'm very, very blessed to be living in California, because I have such an abundance of everything that Yoganandaji recommends in this diet. Of course, he himself lived in California and that's why he recommended these things. Now, the most common grapefruit that one might find or one might buy is called the Ruby Red if you're in the US. The Ruby Red is a perfectly fine grapefruit. I do like it normally, but I think I wouldn't be able to. It would be hard for me to have it every day because it's a little bitter and it has an intense flavor. So I prefer a different kind of grapefruit, and this is what I use. I got one for you here. I'll also share some footage of me shopping in farmers market and other places so you can see how I pick. Now, this particular kind of grapefruit is called a pomelo. And this is the one that I have as part of my 9-day cleanse because it is a little sweeter, it is not as bitter, or it doesn't have such an intense flavor. So, and because this is so huge, it's much bigger compared to a normal grapefruit. I only eat one of these a day instead of having two. But this is another reason why I like to do my diet in March, because starting April it is impossible to find this fruit until December. You get this fruit in California only in January, February, March. Now, if you're in India, this is what I also wanted to share, because I know many people in India write to me often. I don't know if you will easily find this fruit at all. I've seen this fruit in India. It is known by different names in different parts of India. I remember the last time I was in Kolkata, a couple of times I've seen this being sold as a street food. They would just make slices of this and they would serve with some black salt or other chaat masala or something like that on top. So I know it is available, but I also know it is not easily available often. If you can find something like this, certainly get it. I've never seen ruby red grapefruit in India, which is what is more commonly available here in the US. But I would say, because going by the overall principle of what we are trying to do in this diet and what, how it is acting on our body, personally, if you're finding it hard to get this grapefruit, it doesn't mean you can't do this diet. I would just replace it with oranges because they're very similar in taste and content. So there are differences, but I feel like that would be a reasonable replacement if you live in a place where grapefruits are not hard to find. Now, oranges also, I'm spoiled with so much variety, and this is, I forget what this is called. This is also, it's a kind of mandarin. It's an easy peel orange, where the peel does not stick to the flesh. This orange is also one of my favorites. This is called a cara cara, C-A-R-A-C-A-R-A. I'm not sure you'll find this anywhere else, even in the US, let alone the world. It's a very, very sweet variety of orange with pink flesh inside. Again, this is so easily and abundantly available during this season of the year, which is why I prefer. And this one, this is also kind of mandarin, but it's a very small variety. In the US, we call them cuties because they're often given to kids and packed in lunch boxes because they can easily peel and eat them. Now, I stock with a lot of these oranges. Navel oranges also, I have a few I didn't bring to show you. So if you are somewhere else in the world, I think navel oranges are probably the most easy to find, and you might have some mandarin variety like this. These tend to be more seasonal. I know in India you don't get them in all seasons. You get them in some seasons like late summer sometimes, or even in winter times I've seen them. So just get whatever you can find. I've noticed recently, especially in the last 5 or 6 years in India, navel oranges are very widely available all seasons of the year. So you do want to make sure you have a good supply of these oranges in the stores before you start the diet, because without oranges, it's very hard to do the diet. It's heavily focused on orange. Now, moving through my day, that's what I have for breakfast. I eat oranges throughout the day, and as you can see, different oranges are of different sizes. Navel oranges are bigger than these three. So when Yogananda ji says 5 oranges, what size is he talking about? I don't know. So, I'm generally not too rigid because I also tend to have a busy day and I don't want to be thinking about this constantly. I eat approximately 5 oranges, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more, because if I'm eating these cuties, I might just easily eat 3 or 4 in one sitting, and then I'm eating, 8 of these a day instead of five. And if I'm eating huge navel oranges, maybe I'm full with 3 or 4, and then I only want to have one more cutie. So just do whatever is realistic for you. This fast already requires that you create some space in your life in order to shop, prepare the juice, take care of all these things. So I cannot take 9 days off from whatever it is that I do in order to just focus on this diet. So I just have to manage and see what's realistic for me. And so I eat oranges throughout the day. Whenever I feel a little bit slump in my energy, low blood sugar, I'll immediately grab an orange and eat it. And cooked vegetable and raw vegetable. Now again, this is going to really, really depend on your preferences, what you like and don't like. The cooked vegetable that I personally gravitate towards cauliflower and butternut squash. I don't have a butternut squash to show you. I'm going to just show you some footage of me shopping in farmers market as I speak about all of this, because so you can see I've been filming all of this just to make this experience more wholesome for all of you coming along with me. So I prefer cauliflower and butternut squash. They are my vegetables of choice. I also like green beans. Whatever it is that is available where you live, I would go with that. I would personally, Indians tend to think of tubers as vegetables like potatoes. I would avoid those because they're very heavy in starch and I don't think they would work best for detoxification. But of course, if you need to do that, go ahead and do it. It's, you have to do what works for you. I would try to avoid potatoes or sweet potatoes or perhaps even beets because they tend to be so high in sugar and starch. They're tubers. We do have carrots which have sugar already, a lot of sugar. And for the raw vegetable, I like to have sugar snap peas. Again, I'll show you a picture right now what those are. Those are very, very delicious, peas in their pod that you can eat as a whole. I sometimes even have arugula or spinach. Sometimes I would even just eat carrots. I try to avoid what are called nightshade vegetables. They include things like peppers and tomatoes. A lot of people enjoy them. You can have them. They tend to have inflammatory properties, and it's a very personal choice knowing how my body responds to some of these things. So I try and avoid them just during the diet. Generally, I eat eggplants and peppers and tomatoes, but during this diet, I don't consider them as vegetables. I don't add them. I also do not digest very heavy cruciferous vegetables like kohlrabi or even broccoli sometimes or kale. So I personally cannot handle them. When I'm already eating so much fiber, it's hard for me to eat broccoli or cabbage. Even cabbage is too cruciferous for me. And so just because knowing my stomach and how my body processes, I tend to not prefer them. But I think they're also very good choices, especially for cooked vegetables. Especially for cooked vegetables, I think cabbage, broccoli, these are all great choices for cooked vegetables. I rotate between green beans, cauliflower, and butternut squash. That's what I like. You also have to remember that you're cooking these vegetables and having them without salt. So, they're not every vegetable might be as pleasing to your palate. So you have to pick and choose whatever you like. Now, I personally like to shop in farmers market because, as I said, I'm very blessed to be living in this area of this planet where all this stuff is so abundantly available. So I try and shop in farmers market, especially during a diet like this, because the produce is fresh and rich with prana. I also have wonderful grocery stores nearby where I can buy good organic produce in all these categories. So I do that as well. Now, when I cook the vegetable, what I do not steam it or I do not cook it with a lot of water because the broth is not as appetizing for me. So I generally tend to put it in a pan, and I like to dry the water out as much as I can while I'm cooking it. So, it's just a little tastier for me. Now, like I said, I generally eat the cooked vegetable and the raw vegetable both during the day. I would take both of them for lunch. I would just have a bowl of cooked vegetable at some point and raw vegetable at some point. Also, for raw vegetables, I like frozen peas. I think they're very, very easy. I said sugar snap peas are obviously an option, and carrots, but a lot of times I would just eat. I forgot to say that. Frozen peas are my go to option for raw vegetable because they're easy to digest. I'm already consuming so much fiber, sometimes my stomach might struggle with too much fiber to digest as part of the diet. So peas I know are relatively easy, so I would just defrost the frozen peas and I would keep them at room temperature. I would just eat a whole bowl of them without any seasoning, any herbs or any oils or salt or anything. And I do enjoy their taste. They're sweet naturally, so it's nice to have them. Now, if you're from India, the other thing that you might find challenging is the ingredients for the vitality beverage. The celery, it includes four things: celery, dandelion, carrots, and some kind of green spinach or no, parsley. Parsley. Now it's interesting, one of my farmer friends pointed out to me many years ago the three main ingredients of the vitality beverage: carrots, celery, and parsley are actually the same genus. They are the same family of plants. When they are cultivated for the root, it is called carrot. When they are cultivated for the greens, it's called parsley. When they are cultivated for the stem, it's celery. Now, you might find this hard to believe, but if you actually eat carrot leaves, they taste like parsley. If you actually eat the stem of parsley, they taste like celery. And if you actually eat the leaf of celery, it tastes like parsley. They're all very closely related and they're the same family of plants. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know why Master picked this particular family of plants as a cleansing diet for the body, but he did, and I trust his guidance in everything, just as in this. So that's just an interesting piece of information I thought I'd share. But I know that, again, things might be different. Right now, we're speaking in 2022. I've not lived in India for more than 11 years or 12 years. So maybe some of these are easily available for you. I know parsley has been somewhat easily available in India lately, and even celery. So if it is easily available for you, certainly try and stock them before you start the fast, before you start the diet. I'm not sure how we can replace these. Of course, sometimes we tend to replace parsley with cilantro, or what we call coriander leaves in India. So that may be an option if you cannot find these vegetables easily where you live. I would make those switches, because if Yogananda ji was prescribing a diet in India, I suspect he would have written something completely else. He's not going to expect you to buy exotic ingredients from, fancy supermarkets, but rather be more in tune with the land and what's available there easily. So, take your best call and buy whatever feels realistic. Carrot juice along with some kind of green and herb. There are a lot of natural Indian greens that are very abundantly available in India. Of course, spinach itself is quite common and very easily available, and whatever other herbs and greens you can get. You can see what intuitively feels like a good replacement for you. I'm sure you can, in your own mind, hold it as an offering to Yogananda ji, and he will guide you to whatever it is that's appropriate for your body, and you can pick what's easily available in that sense. What I do with the lemons is also I add those lemon juice, because I forgot to mention that there's 1.5 lemons that you have to eat every day. So I sometimes even have more than 1.5 lemons. I just add that juice to my Vitality beverage. And also I would sometimes put that juice on top of the raw or the cooked vegetables. I cannot eat that lemon straight up, so I'll have to add it to something. So that's what I add it to. So other than that, at night you also have 1 cup of orange juice along with a mild laxative. So the things that Yoganandaji recommended were Swiss chris or senna leaves. Senna leaves, I found they're available in India. I don't know what they're called in Hindi. In Tamil, which happens to be my mother tongue, they're the leaves of a particular tree called avarambu. And if you have those leaves, you can use them. Swiss chris is something that is particular to the US, I think. You won't find it. But honestly, all that Yoganandaji was recommending is a mild laxative. I have heard, I can't remember right now where I read it, Triphala, which is a very common Ayurvedic concoction that is consumed in India, serves the same purpose. So I've been told that that would be a perfectly acceptable replacement. Just a spoon of Triphala along with orange juice at night would also expedite and help that cleaning process. So that's about all the ingredients and what we eat every day. I think I'll stop this video here. There's a lot I want to share, but I'll come back to you again. You'll get to go along this journey with me. You'll get to see me on day 3 and day 5 and day 6. Hopefully I'll feel up and ready to be speaking to a camera like this, but I'm sure I will. I'll also share with you some of the challenges that I've faced and how you can navigate them going through a diet like this and other practices that Yoganandaji recommended, and the idea of tuning into prana itself. So we'll talk more about all of that. For right now, I'm going to sign off from my kitchen, and I'll speak to you again in the next day or two. God bless you.